Can you hear me out there? Sound like I'm lost in space, don't I? Please do say hello and let me know you're here. Hello, Sharing. Beautiful name. Good. Hello, Julia. Good to see you. Thank you so much for letting me know that it's working. Hello, Janice, and hello, Sophia. Let me know where you are in the world. Thank you for saying hello and letting me know you can hear me. Okay, it's always a good start that I can actually see you. I can actually know that you can hear me. I don't know what went wrong with my brain there in the sentence. So that's good to know. But let me know where in the world you are from. Bhutan. I don't know where that is. Tell me where that is. And am I saying your name right? I want to say to Sharing. Sharing? Oh, Janice, you're in Liverpool, New York. Not Liverpool along the end of the M62 in the UK. That always amuses me that you've got the same place names, a lot of the same place names in the US as we have in the UK. So obviously Liverpool, I don't know if you know, but Liverpool is the big city where the Beatles were originated from, and it's near the west of the UK. And I'm more to the east of the UK, in the north. So Bhutan, small country between China and India. Well, that's me educated then. Brilliant. Every day's a school day. I love that. Sophia from Idaho. Janice, yeah, lol. Wrong Liverpool. Jeffrey from New Zealand. I did have my time. I have a little tool that I use to see what the time is in other parts of the world, and I think it's an interesting app for you, Jeffrey, in New Zealand. Julia from Portugal. Interestingly, I don't know if you are Portuguese, Julia, or actually just live in Portugal. I have quite a few, not a lot, but I have quite a few contacts in Portugal now. People who I have one friend who was based in the US, I think mostly in Florida. She's moved to Portugal. I know somebody from Bristol who lives in Portugal. I know another business owner. Oh, 2:52 a.m. Bless you, Jeffrey. That is an hour. So welcome. Oh, you're very very Portuguese. Fantastic. So maybe it's Julia, is it? I don't know. So welcome to this session today about navigating difficult conversations. Love to know what's brought you here today. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about me. So my name's Claire Downham. I've been calling myself a human potential catalyst, but I'm playing around with. I saw something somebody wrote earlier, and it said personal and professional well-being, and I quite liked that. I thought, yeah, personal and professional well-being mentor. So, I don't know, whatever you've got going on, if there's something that just feels off in your life, then I can help you. And I do that by teaching a really simple understanding about how the mind works, known as the 3 principles, which allows you to have more sustained calm, navigate life with a lot more ease, but without any tools or techniques or strategies or poking around in the past. It allows you to take an awful lot off your plate. So if this is a new understanding to you, let me know in the comments. Have you heard of the 3 principles? Have you not heard of it? Is it something new? Is it something that sounds, as I talk, you might think, oh, that sounds a bit like such and such a teaching, or that sounds a bit like the kind of thing that other people say. So Sophia, you've personally never heard of it. So as you're going on, there will be some things that sound familiar. But the great thing about the 3 principles is that it's principles. That's the best thing about it. In that, it's true for all people, all the time, no matter where in the world you live. So it's a bit like gravity in that regard, because gravity is something that is true, no matter where in the world you live and no matter who you are. There's kind of a formula for how our human experience is created. And it is this formula that we teach in the 3 principles. And it's a bit like anything else. When you know the formula, you just can do better at it, can't you? Like the formula for making a cake is currently something that I can't remember. It's got you've got to have the right amount of flour, and it's got to be self-raising flour, hasn't it? If you're going to make just a Victoria sponge, let's say, I don't know if everybody calls it a Victoria sponge, but a sponge cake, a nice little bit of cream. There's a formula, isn't it? It's got eggs and flour and fat and sugar. Usually, half fat to flour is pastry, isn't it? Anyway, you need these ingredients in a certain proportion, and then the cake works, doesn't it? If you get any of them out of balance, your cake doesn't work. And I think the bit that I see now that is out of balance so much in the world is that we are living life in our psychology, in our thinking, and not in our essence, in our connection to universal intelligence. We're living our life in our heads. And that's where we create all our suffering, all of it. None of it comes from the outside world. Our psychological suffering is created inside out, not outside in. And I realise that the argument against that idea is pretty strong. It really does look like it works outside in, doesn't it? Until it doesn't, of course. So Brianna, hello from Denver, Colorado. Thank you for being here. So I teach this understanding called the 3 principles. I tend to call myself a mentor. I do use coaching techniques as well. So I use questioning to help you to get clarity around your issues. I'm a regular teacher on Insight Timer, and I have been on Insight Timer since I think 2021 maybe. But I am now a very much more regular teacher. I have a number of courses. I'm not going to tell you the titles of them all, but the one that connects to our theme this month, the theme of relationships, is called Creating Harmonious Connections and Enhancing Relationships with the 3 Principles, which the title for which is I wish I could go back and change the title. It's just too long. The next course, which is in the offing already this month, because I'm going to be travelling in my motorhome. I'm at home at the moment. You can tell when I'm at home because I have this green curtain behind me as a rule. So I'm at home at the moment, but from next week, middle of next week, I will be off again in the motorhome for about 18 days. I don't really want to record my course in the motorhome because I can be in some noisy places sometimes. It's a lot quieter here. So I will be rattling off that course over the next few days, and that will be a basic core, a fundamental course in the 3 principles. So if you aren't familiar with the 3 principles, that course will be a really good one for you to get you started. I love the fact we have more than one person here from Bhutan, it seems, because Yang Ki, I think, Yang Ki, is encouraging Nancy to visit Bhutan, which is interesting, because I'm guessing that means that you're both in Bhutan. Very cool. So Nancy, it looks like you've got 2 people to visit when you go. Hope you get there soon. Please do follow me on Insight Timer if you're not already doing so. Let me know if you're already following me or if you're about to do that any minute now. If you follow me, you get to know about everything that I create, everything that I put out there, all the lives that I schedule. I've got this live scheduled up until the end of next week already. So a great there's already loads of stuff coming up all around the theme of relationships. The whole of August has been on the theme of relationships. In September, I'm going to really explore we're going to take a deep dive into the fundamentals of the 3 principles, and all the lines will be around that. So I will be sharing some stories, some things that I've seen And I hope to encourage you to participate in those sessions and share kind of what you've seen as well, especially if you've been doing the courses. So I can see there's quite a few people here now. If you've not said hello and let me know where in the world you are, then please do so. Please let me know. You can hear me okay, everything's ready. I can see Danielle. I'm trying to kind of recognise the faces now as they go bobbing. Oh, faces, or somebody's got a lovely little rabbit, I think, with a picture there. Not sure who that is. Hi, Danielle. So let's, what else was I going to say? Oh, the last thing is that I'd like to mention is that these sessions are brought to you by donation. There's no, obviously, I don't get paid for doing this. If you can make a donation, it does support Insight Timeline, and it supports me in my work on here, and it helps to keep so much content on Insight Timeline free, which I think is really good. So we're going to be looking at difficult conversations today. So it'd be good if you have anything in particular around that is concerning you, or that you've seen already about difficult conversations, then please do pop that in the comments. What I usually find is I do a bit of talking, and then you come in and we make it a much more of a kind of fluid discussion. So you can catch this on YouTube. I do save these and put them on YouTube, but also I've started to record a little podcast type episode for you to listen to, and that's ready to go live. So it's just waiting for approval. My things are getting approved very quickly at the moment, just because I create so much. So bless them for keeping up with it. Bless them for doing that, because it's quite a lot. So difficult conversations. So I think the first thing that I have to say about this is that it is yet another issue that has had a good PR. It's had good PR in that there is a lot of training and a lot of things you can learn about having difficult conversations. You can do training. Has anybody done training on difficult conversations? I'd love to hear that. I'd love to know whether you've done training on difficult conversations, because it seems to me that there's a lot you can learn about it, apparently. Notice I say apparently. And that you can have all these strategies and tools and techniques and things kind of in your head when you go into a conversation. In order to navigate that conversation and make it turn out how you want it to turn out. So the first thing to say about that is that I pretty much guarantee that if in advance of a conversation you decide it's going to be difficult, it will be, or it will appear to be. Now, I realise there are some jobs in terms of communicating or having conversations that we're not a big fan of. Excuse me. An example of that in the workplace, or anywhere for that matter, is something like giving people feedback and letting people know perhaps that their performance is not quite what you would like it to be. And that's one place that a lot of us, let's be honest, are not a fan of doing those kind of conversations, giving that kind of feedback, perhaps telling somebody that their job is no more, or delivering sad news perhaps, or telling or realizing that there's something that you and another person really do disagree on, and that you want to deal with it. Now, the thing is that what we do with that is that we make something out to be hard in advance of starting it. So, as I say, if you go into a difficult conversation, or you go into a conversation and you decide in advance it's going to be difficult, it's much more likely to be difficult because your belief system creates your reality in that regard. And that's it's mainly because of confirmation bias. If I go in with the thought that this person is generally difficult, the news I'm giving is hard, the result of this is going to be somebody's going to lose the plot with me, whatever, then of course I start to look at that person and I notice that their expression on their face is a particular way, and I believe that the expression is saying one thing, might not be saying that thing at all. So I start to get worried about it, and then we're creating this reality all the time. Our reality, not reality. Goodness knows if anybody can actually see that. I don't think any of us can. But we start to create a perception, a thought-created illusion that this thing isn't going well, and it is a difficult conversation. So the first thing to know is that, if we realize this part that thought plays in creating our reality, it's so powerful because we can then start to become aware that we're making up something to be a difficult conversation in advance of it actually happening. We're creating a level of anxiety, because that is what happens when we think about the future in a worrying way. We feel that level of anxiety in our bodies. Now, what that might do is that might have us avoid the conversation. Anybody here avoided a conversation for a period of time that was a bit longer than was healthy or helpful? I'm sure we've all done it at some point. So we may avoid the conversation because we think the anxious feeling is coming from the conversation. The anxious feeling is coming from our thinking about the conversation. Thank you, Sophia, for being honest, and Gloria's being honest. Totally avoid. So because we've got a lot of thinking about that conversation, we've decided it's difficult in advance, and we are then feeling really anxious, and we might avoid it, or we might still do it. But if you can think, if you can realize that when you're feeling anxious, your reptilian brain is having a field day. It's all about the reptilian brain. Fear is, how do I get myself out of this dangerous position? Your prefrontal cortex, which is, I don't know if it is there. Is it there? Who cares where it is? But your prefrontal cortex is not the bit where you do all your logical, sensible, intuition-led thinking. That's gone out the window. It's no longer functioning because you're in a state of fear, and in a state of fear, you can't think straight. You just can't. So the first thing in all of this is awareness of how present you are when you are considering a conversation. And I'm just going to call it a conversation because we don't know it's difficult in advance. So what we have is a world telling us that we can know in advance something is going to be difficult, and that we can prepare for it by doing all this, checking out all these tools and techniques, doing all this studying of how to have a difficult conversation, going on courses, reading books perhaps. Has anybody read books on how to have a difficult conversation? I haven't actually Googled this one, but I guarantee there are over 100 million hits if you search how to have a difficult conversation. Danielle's done some training. So the first thing is awareness. It's always the first thing. It's the first, last, and it's the first, middle, and last thing, I think, really. So the first thing is awareness. Are you aware of your state of mind? And how do you know? How do you know what your state of mind is? Well, your emotions reflect it. They are, your emotions are an energetic representation of your thought in the moment in your body. So when you are thinking, oh, this conversation is going to be awful, or it's going to be, it's going to be really a difficult conversation, it's very easy to start to feel terrible and to then go in with unhelpful, untrue thinking about the conversation. Now, when we start to come from a place of awareness, when we start to go, oh, right, okay, my state of mind's not so good right now, what occurs to us to do is very different. So if we think it's coming from the conversation that we're about to have, then we might avoid it, or we might go in a bit like gung-ho, or a bit like ready for battle, I'm ready for this. Bring it on, we go in and we're already going with what we're going to say and how we're not going to, we're going to not going to give them an inch because they'll take a mile. So let's go in kind of. So we might go in like that. Lots of different ways we can go in, but our behaviour will be towards the conversation. I'm running away from the conversation, but it will be about the conversation. When we realise that in any moment, it's our state of mind that we are being advised of by the feeling in our bodies, we're less likely to go gung-ho into a conversation. We're less likely to run away. We're much more likely to take care of ourselves. And that might, so if you're considering a conversation that you think is going to be difficult, and you're already making it to be difficult, and you're already getting quite upset and wound up about it, then just knowing that that's what you're doing is really, really helpful. It does allow you a window of choice that opens up, that you might well go, I'm going to just step off this train of thought. I'm not going to think about the conversation too much in advance. Or it might occur to meditate. It might occur to go for a walk. It might occur to just feel your feet on the ground, take a breath, take care of it. Whatever, it'll occur to do something for you, to help you, because you'll realise that the feeling is coming from you, not from anywhere outside of you. And that might be, something that helps you to calm down in some way. Whatever works for you, it doesn't really matter. So that's the first thing, is watching out for where we are making something up in advance of when it's happening to be scary. And conversations are not the only things we do this with. It's many aspects of life. Have we got any worriers? You're not a worrier, but have we got people who do quite a bit of worrying in the room? I suspect people who feel anxious quite often. This will just be another place where you can start to see that anxious feeling that you've got is coming from your state of mind and not from anything outside of you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so let's imagine that we have been on a workshop. Danielle's been on non-violent communication. So let's imagine that we've been on a workshop. So to me, and I'm sure you've noticed this if you've meditated, which I'm sure some of you, calm is a state of mind where we have very little thinking, and that which we do have is about the present moment. And that is our best state of mind to function from. So let's imagine, and it's also our best state of mind to connect with another human being from, because in that space, we're in the space of connection, not separation. We're in the space of compassion. We're in the space of oneness. The less we have on our mind, the less disconnected we are from other people. So let's have that as the premise. You are best placed to communicate with another person about anything, any conversation, when you are calm. But let's imagine that you've already started to worry about this conversation because you've made it up to be difficult and you're already feeling quite wound up about it. And you start to feel quite anxious, but then you remember, oh, I went on a workshop a while ago on how to have a difficult conversation. So let me think about all those tools and techniques and strategies somebody's told me about how to have a difficult conversation. Now, I'm hoping you can hear that you've already got somebody with a very busy, anxious mind, and now this person with the very busy, anxious mind now has got some more busy thinking, trying to remember, maybe feeling a bit guilty that they can't. Didn't I make enough notes in the training? And why can't I remember to do this? There's all this other thinking going on now, who is now even more busy-minded. So let's go back to calm is our best state. That's the state when we are connected to other human beings. It's the state we communicate best from. It's the state when we are at our best. And now we're anxiously thinking about the conversation and thinking about all the tools we could do, trying to remember what we learned in the workshop, trying to get ahead of ourselves, trying to plan it all out, control it. And our mind is very, very busy. Very busy. Too busy to communicate well. So I hope you can see that anything in life where we're adding psychologically is going to take us away from calm. Anything where we're subtracting is going to bring us closer to calm. All the tools and techniques in all those workshops are adding, not subtracting. Whereas when we see in the moment that we're wound up, we're not feeling good, we've got untrustworthy thinking, we have a tendency to look towards subtraction. Can I choose to not be on this train of thought? What do I want to do to bring myself back in the present moment? How can I occupy my intellect while my psychological immune system just moves everything on? Can I notice the direction of my thinking and let it go? So I'll just go to the chart. The comments. Oh, Jeff, you try to be a warrior, but you're too often just a worrier. Oh, Jeff, you're the bunny rabbit, of course. I should know that. Lots of love, Jeff. Thank you for being here. So, Angus, it's a good reminder how powerful we are. Our thoughts, words, and actions are powerful. Like attracts like, yeah, absolutely. If you go into a conversation with your idea about it being very difficult, I can pretty much guarantee the other person is going to be difficult because you're going to go in. Oh, I've got a great example of this. My mum, bless her. She's a lot better now, but she went through a phase. She does like a complain, but she went through a phase of getting the worst customer service from everybody I've never come across anybody. I mean, I don't have massive conversation about customer service with people, but I access customer service all the time, and I never ever got the awful service that she got. She would come for dinner on a regular basis and tell me all about the awful customer service she was getting wherever she went. And I was just thinking, what's going on here? Is she just unlucky? Did she just get the duff people on the other end of the phone? What on earth is going on? Anyway, one day I was there when she made a customer service call, and I knew straight away what was going on. She picks up the phone and she's like that straight away. She's already in a bad mood. Because she's going in with this idea already that she's going to have a difficult conversation. She's already tense. It's coming out in a tone of voice. She's disconnecting with the person on the other end of the phone. She's not ready to listen because her thinking is very sped up. She can't really listen. And so the communication's off. And so then, of course, the person on the other end of the phone is a bit shirty and, a bit rude maybe. And then they're a bit inefficient because they're a little bit upset, etc. Absolutely perfect to see that, that's a perfect example of this, where it, where that happens. When we go in with a preconceived idea about something, well, our tone is different, our body language is different, how we sit, whatever, is all kind of geared towards this is going to be a problem, and other people can sense that. Not that other people are feeling our behaviour, but if somebody speaks to you in a rude tone, you're immediately a bit like, hang on a minute, that's normal and human, isn't it? So I hope that example, that little story is quite helpful in terms of that. So Angus, you remind that worry is like a rocking back and forth in a rocking chair, not going anywhere. And you see yourself in a rocking chair, it shifts your mindset. That's a nice way to kind of remind yourself, isn't it, Angus? Yeah, it goes nowhere. But the great thing about worry is that it's a gem, really. You know, that well, our body's a gem, because when we start to worry, our body starts to scream at us, doesn't it? We feel the sweaty palms, we feel the butterflies, we feel the heart pounding, we might feel jittery. And that's our body letting us know that we're worrying. It's letting us know we're on the rocking chair. Feel it in your body, the rocking chair, Yeah, but it's a gift that really that our body can let us know about these things. So the first thing I hope you've picked up in this session is that making up that something's going to be a difficult conversation in advance is not helpful. Have you ever had that happen, actually, where you've kind of thought, oh, I really need to talk to so-and-so about this, and they're not going to like it, and actually it turns out all right, because they actually were already going in the same direction. So I've got an example of that. I used to be a primary school head teacher, and in my first headship we had a teacher. Let's call him Bob. And Bob, I don't know, it seemed to me like Bob had had enough. He wasn't even that old, to be fair. He was younger than me at the time. Well, he's still younger than me, obviously, but Bob had been at the school where I had taken over for a very long time, and people had been, well, the leadership team had been trying to deal with Bob's performance in the classroom for quite some time. And Bob really wasn't responding to that. In other words, his teaching wasn't really improving. However, he was super popular with the parents and the kids, because he was larger than life kind of, happy fella. But his classroom practice was poor, and the children didn't make progress when they were taught. And they had a lovely time, which I know is wonderful. But as a primary school head teacher, my priorities were not just I want them to have a lovely time, but I wanted them to learn stuff as well, and they weren't learning at the rate that was expected, I guess. So Bob, I kept going to watch Bob teach and coming out going, oh, Bob's not a very good teacher. He's just not a very good teacher. And there was one feedback session where he was I remember him being in my office, and I think there was another member of my senior team there, and I just remember suddenly feeling quite present and being very calm and just kind of saying to him, are you actually happy here? It just came to mind, like to say, are you? And he just said, no, I'm not really. And as it was, he was part-time at my school, and he was part-time at another school, and he just went off and got more hours at the other school, and they wanted him, so could have him. They knew it wasn't like I didn't have to do anything or give him a reference that was not reflecting how I thought about his teaching, because he already had this other part-time role. So off he went. So within about a year, he first cut his hours right down, and then eventually, he needed the money for a while, but eventually he just left. And that was better for my school, really. And that's really interesting, isn't it? That you could make that conversation up, to conversation with this person about would they like to leave. But just in that moment, the way I tackled it, that's before I understood this, but there was just something about me, I guess, in a way, just kind of feeling not sorry for him, but feeling some compassion towards him, because I could just see he wasn't happy. And he left, which was great for me on my school, on my results. my position on the league tables was improved by him leaving. So yeah, it's really it's amazing what comes out of us when we're just present, really. So let's look a little bit more into this in terms of the other thing that I think comes out when we're we're going to have a difficult conversation, inverted commas, and that is our perception of other people, and our stories of other people and what we think they're like and what we think they're going to do and what they're going to say and all that kind of thing. Now, there's a lovely author called Steve Chandler who's written more books than I've had hot dinners. He's a prolific writer. He's a coach, quite well-known coach, and he has a book called Right Now, which is all about the present moment. I should listen to it again, actually. It's such a good book. And he talks about Dory, the little fish from Finding Nemo. And I've talked about this a bit during our work on relationships this month. So Dory from Finding Nemo is a fish with a very poor short-term memory. So she goes into every situation with nothing on her mind. You know, she just goes in fresh and new. She doesn't go in with a preconceived idea about what somebody's like, created by her thinking. She just goes in and just is fresh with people. Not fresh, like cheeky. She's a bit cheeky as well, but she just goes in and she's just comes from a blank canvas kind of thing. So again, it's going back to what I was saying before, where we're saying, oh, you know, calm is our best place to connect to people. It's our best place to do that. So if we've got less on our mind, if we haven't got the story of the other person, if we haven't got a lot of noise in our heads, we can really go in and connect with that person almost in a I've never met you kind of way. And I do think that really does open up the space for people to appear different to how they used to be. And I'm really very curious about this at the moment around my fiance. And there are some things that I think Bruce does repeatedly, and I'm starting to see that I've got this story of Bruce. So he does something, and I categorize it into category A, B, C. Well, you know, it's category A offence. So I am starting to notice that he'll do something, and I'll be like, oh, that's just like Bruce. He does that all the time, and it's not related really. It's just my story. So that's a fun place that I'm getting curious about at the moment in terms of my relationship with Bruce and how I perceive him. So that's the other thing is, so we're going in with our story about this other person and we're creating our reality, just like Angus was saying. We are creating that. So I've just noticed that lots, like double people here from when I first started the topic. So if you've just come in, don't worry. There is a little podcast style audio of this going to be released very soon, and there's also I'm also screen grabbing this and it will go onto YouTube. Now, and there's a playlist. So if you go to the link in my bio, there's a playlist of these. And very exciting, there's also something else that you can have a look at. If you'd like to connect to me a bit more, but you don't want to kind of invest in a big chunk of coaching, there's, straight after this, I'm going to be hopping onto Zoom, and you're welcome to come along and hash out anything you want to hash out in terms of your relationships. So you're welcome to check that out in the link in my bio. Also, please, if you're new, do follow me, and you can find out more about what I'm up to and find out when I release new courses and new events and things like that. If you don't already follow me, and welcome, and let me know where you are in the world if you've just come in fairly recently, and what's brought you here today. And I can see the comments have gone a bit quiet, so if anybody's got anything around this issue of difficult conversations, then please do pop it in the comments, and I'll see if I can tackle that during the session. So we've talked a bit about going in with the story of the conversation, with the story of the person, knowing that the whole of our life is created by our stories. That's just our entire reality is being created that way. So, but then the next piece for me is when you're actually in the conversation, because there is sometimes some navigation in the moment needed. So Najwa from Beirut, I think you are the first person who's ever said hi from Beirut. Najwa, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. So the next piece is that in the moment navigation of our conversations with other people. And again, I've got a lovely little story about this, where I actually, now I'm somebody who gets a little bit engrossed in things and likes to talk about things and talk over things far too much. And I have a great deal of awareness about this, but not quite enough to stop it yet. So Bruce will do something. I mean, he's my most frequent he's the relationship I refer to most on these calls, because he's the most prominent relationship in my life, because he lives in my house with me and there's only me and him most of the time. And he's my fiance. I love him very much. And we're both in this conversation, so we can have some really groovy? We can have some really quite deep conversations about this, because we both have been learning it. So the other morning, we were out for a walk. But what? Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is that I tend to make conversations difficult. It's the truth of it, and I want to be honest with you about these kind of things, because I don't want you to think that I'm some perfect princess who never gets anything wrong and that I'm calm all the time. I'm a human being, and I want you to see that it's okay for you to be human too. You're not supposed to be like flawless and never getting upset or never getting into disagreements or never having difficult conversations with people. That's just part of life. So I have a lot of awareness about my need, even when he said sorry, to go nitpicking through things and turning them over like Detective Downham, and just like not particularly in a helpful way. But I am starting to catch myself more often, and this was an occasion where I did catch that we were butting heads, and there wasn't really a point to it. So we were having a conversation about Bruce's holiday allocation. So let me tell you this. This is strange. So he was saying to me that his holiday year starts on the 1st of September. That's the school year in this country. I'm not sure why a business is running their holidays on the school year, but they are. So his holiday allocation starts on the 1st of September. So he was saying to me that, so we're going away in November. We're going to Spain to a lovely Three Principles event. So he was telling me that he had booked his holiday for November, but that it had used holiday allocation from the current year, not from the new year, not from the 2023-2024 year, but from the 22-23 year. And I said, that can't be right. Surely when you book your holiday, it comes out of the year when that holiday actually is going to happen. So we're having this conversation was getting silly, really, because whatever he said to me just didn't make sense at all, that could be the case. So we're going on and I was just saying, but it can't work that way, because if you have no holiday left this year, you couldn't book. You'd have to wait till the 1st of September to be able to book something for time off in November. And what if you didn't get the holiday allocation? You'd already booked a trip. Doesn't work, does it? Anyway, so we're going on, and I was getting more, but I started to notice about me, but him too, but mostly about me, that I was starting to get wound up, and I could feel that in my body. I could hear it in my voice. I was getting louder. I could feel the frustration and the angst of it, and then at one point I just went, let's just stop. Let's just stop talking about this for a minute. Just hold my hand and walk with me, and let's just forget about it for a minute. So I walked a bit. I kind of took a breath and then grounded myself back in the present moment. And then I tried to have a conversation about it again. Felt a bit calmer. Started again. Still went in the going round and round in circles. It was ridiculous. And after a short time, I said, no, we're still not ready to talk about this, are we? We were both kind of wound up. And then I think it happened once more. And then the third time, after I'd calmed down for a minute, I just said, do you know what? Just could you just please phone HR and find out how this system really works? Because I would like to know how it works, because it's quite pivotal in terms of how we plan our trips. Because, yeah, it's more complicated, isn't it? So I asked him today if he'd actually done it, and he hadn't done it. So it's obviously gone off his mind. But that was an example where I was self-aware enough in that moment. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not like that all the time. Sometimes I lose it and I get caught up in something and have a right old rant about something, because I'm a human being. I'm normal. But the times when we catch ourselves in the moment are truly transformational, because we're seeing the truth. And you know, we don't often see the truth as human beings. We miss it all the time. We're seeing the truth of our own humanness in the moment. We're seeing that we are caught up in our thinking. We're noticing the feeling in our bodies, and we know that that's letting us know that our state of mind is not in a helpful place in this moment. And we can make better decisions from that place of knowing. We can decide to not have the conversation. We could decide to say to the person, can we have a little time out, because I'm a bit wound up. And I heard a beautiful story from another Three Principles teacher who described how when her teenage daughter went through, well, just being a teenager, and the daughter also had an understanding of this, and they agreed that when they sat down to have conversations about tricky issues, you know, of which there seem to be many when people are teenagers, or when you're dealing with teenagers, that they would both stop if it got wound up. They would both actually stop the conversation, take a breath, have some time out, and that worked really well. It was almost like, I guess you might almost call it like a safe word, you know. It's a bit 50 Shades Grey, that, but you know, it's just saying, look, neither of us in a good place. It's realizing that when we're upset, when we're wound up, when we're feeling angry, frustrated, whatever, we're in a place of separation. We're seeing the other as really separate, and it looks at that point, doesn't it, that they just need to change their mind or stop it, not do that anymore for us to be okay. And that's a place of confusion. It's a real place of confusion. But when we see in the moment, oh, I'm stirred up, and I'm therefore not communicating well because I'm stirred up, because you're in that reptilian, I don't know, is the reptilian brain back there, but you're in the reptilian brain, aren't you? And you're just crackers, really. We all are when we're upset. Our thinking is untrustworthy. That's why it feels horrible, because it's lies. It's all lies. Really useful to know. So, Najwa, you often avoid those difficult conversations because you try to avoid conflict or offending, and think it's because of bad experiences before, especially with family members. Yeah, and that's really a beautiful piece of awareness, Najwa. That really is, that you've seen that there is some kind of old thinking around this, some old habitual thinking, where you've got a story that it's going to be another bad experience. And it's that awareness that's super helpful, and to know that your body's always helping you by letting you know that the feeling you have is a feeling that's coming from how you're thinking about something, not the thing itself. So Beth, thank you, Beth. That's so lovely. Yeah, the real human examples. Yeah, I am. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Shows my humility. And refreshing. Yeah, I think it's so good to hear that, you know, sometimes we can come onto a platform like this and everybody's very shiny and polished, and they look like they don't have anything going on that's like you. But I don't know the point of that really, because I've done a lot of self-development and stuff, courses and read books, and I have to say that for me, those people who looked perfect, Instagram perfect, they made me feel worse. Now they didn't make me feel worse. However, I don't think any of us need to believe a lie that anybody else is perfect and we're not. I don't think that's a helpful perspective to look at life from. There's not one single person who isn't having a human experience, unless they're not having a human experience anymore, and they're not even on the mortal coil anymore. Oh, I mean, Instagram is a complete illusion, Angus, you're absolutely right. I remember once going to see Ruby Wax. Some of you will have heard of Ruby Wax. She's an American lady, but she has been adopted by the UK. She lives here now. And I remember going to see her. She talks a lot about mental illness. Unfortunately, she's on a roller coaster. I wish I could teach her the 3 principles. I think I could really change her experience. Because she's in and out of being sectioned, and she's struggled a lot. She's on a lot of medication. She's been through all sorts of different therapies, etc. And she keeps relapsing, is what you might call it. Anyway, I went to see her at a theatre in Bradford, a city near me, a few years ago, and she's a comedian. She's very funny. So she was the first half, and the second half she had a monk and a neuroscientist to talk about mental health and stuff, and they were taking questions from the audience. And so the first half was like a stand-up comedy thing, and then the second half, and telling her, talking about her own struggles with mental illness, and the second half was more a Q&A type thing. And somebody asked the monk, the Buddhist monk, do you ever get angry? And he just laughed. Of course I do. And that's somebody who has withdrawn from some aspects of life, who is living a very, I guess a life where they're maybe not experiencing some of the human crap that we are, and they're still experiencing those human emotions. Your system has been created to share those human emotions with you. That's the point, really. Without that, I'm not sure that we're functioning as human beings, really. But it's not the having or the not having of emotions. It's not the admitting to them or not. It's what we understand about them. When we understand that an emotion is an indicator of our state of mind, it's letting us know what's going on in here, then it changes everything. It changes how we relate to our emotions. We're no longer afraid of them. We no longer think they're a problem. We no longer think they're telling us about situations and circumstances of other people. We know to go inside. And we also know that they pass. An emotion really has a 90-second lifespan. I've just been talking about this with the lady that I connected with from Insight Timer. This misunderstanding about our emotions is causing 100% of suffering. So, Angus, how do you approach a family member who gets upset when you bring things they're doing to their attention? When I bring things to my daughter's attention, it's from a love space, but she gets wind up, so I normally back off. We just pray and say the metta prayer, may you be happy, safe, yeah. And may your day flow with ease. So, Angus, the first question I would ask you is, why do you want her to change? because as a parenting, and I've done quite a bit of that. So my children are 23 and 21, my own children. So yeah, I mean, rising 24 and rising 22, which is a bit scary. But I also have a stepson. He's not quite a stepson because we're only engaged, we're not married. But I've been in his life since he was 3. He's 11 now, so that's 8. It's been 8 years that I've been with my fiance. So I've done a fair bit of that parenting malarkey, and also obviously I helped to raise lots of other people's children as a primary school head teacher. So what I think comes out in this outside-in misunderstanding from a parenting place is that we need our children to be a certain way for us to be okay. And we need them to change. We want them to be different. We want them to have certain experiences. We think their well-being dictates our well-being. And it's just about bringing some awareness to why we would want our children to change. And I'm still having experiences of this. My son, my 21-year-old son, is just shocking at communicating. Just like he was supposed to come to a family party on Saturday and he just didn't turn up. He doesn't turn up. He's unreliable and doesn't communicate very well. But I sometimes have a little conversation with him and just say, would it be okay if you try? I ask things like, I say, which messaging platform should I message you on? Which one are you most likely to listen to read? On the other day, so he said text. Who uses text these days? Anybody? And I texted him and he replied on Snapchat. But as I let go of my need for him to be different, for me to be okay, that relationship has had more and more ease in it, I have to say. So it's the things you don't agree with, but it also comes from when she had cancer at 10. She just turned Sunday. Being that she had cancer, I just don't want her to suffer, but she does things that bring on suffering. It affects family. Well, bless you. That's a huge thing to have to contend with in life. That certainly is life being a contact sport, isn't it? So lots of love to you, Angus, is the first thing. But then suffering. And I thought you were talking about a child. She's 32. Then she's just not. My children are 23 and 21, and it is not my job. None of that is my job anymore. They're grown adults. They have to do their own life. And if she's behaved, what I guess you're saying, which I haven't quite got a handle on, Angus, I'd have to have a proper conversation with you about it, which you're welcome to. But it sounds like she's doing some behaviours that are at risk to her health, perhaps. I think that's what you're saying. But it's not your problem. I know that's hard, but just love her exactly as she is. Be compassionate that she's doing the best she can with the thinking that looks true to her. And be there when she wants you to be. That's all advice, but I think when we see, that you talk about suffering is not coming from them. She can't create suffering for your family because your family's suffering comes from their thinking about what she's doing, not from what she's doing. And when you see that, Angus, it does open up a space for some relief, I think. So I'm just scrolling down the chat again. So Sabine from Sweden, you've had a lot of dealing with healthcare due to traffic. Oh, bless you. So sorry to hear that. People doctors who usually tend to be difficult to communicate with. Oh, well, they just are, aren't they? Yeah, just a minute. Oh, I don't know why I have an alarm going off because at 5 o'clock I will be on Zoom if anybody wants to join us. check out the link in my bio. So I'm trying to read your message, Sabine, but every time somebody puts a message at the bottom, your message disappears on the screen. Yeah, so it's about people seeming to be difficult to communicate with. Doctors in particular, I do know generally that I think doctors are very intellectual and therefore don't necessarily have good bedside manner, do they? Find it impossible to communicate, not a level of equality. Lost you again. So a lot of bad experiences. I have been meeting so many people in situations where I can't defend myself or communicate, and it results in bad consequences where I fall into an empty space and not even getting the most necessary healthcare. Sabine, I'm so sorry to read that. You're right, it is a difficult one to tackle on a big session like this with 124 people here, probably, and not knowing your full story. So please, just keep listening to these sessions. Keep listening to this inside out understanding, because it's all going to be about not the other people, but you're checking out your state of mind and your self-awareness, because no matter what happens in the world out there, that's the one thing that we can do something about. Not in a change thoughts, change feelings kind of way, not in that way, but with a level of self-awareness, it becomes easier for us to navigate life. When we start to notice, I'm getting emotional about this, I'm not articulating myself well. Sometimes for me it's just my feet on the floor, give myself a breath, start again. And all you can do is navigate. You can't control other people. That's fundamentally what we're saying here. You can't control them. You can't make them do anything. However, you can navigate with a lot more ease when you're calm. And so just noticing when you're not, and noticing when it looks like it's coming from out there. And that's for you as well, Angus. It's not coming from out there. So you deal with this too, Najwa. Yeah, children, bless them. Yeah, so it's not that you want them to change, but you want them to be able to communicate with them without the outbursts or irritation. Well, if there will be outbursts and irritation with our children and our partners. So maybe looking towards something that's impossible is not helpful. It really isn't. There's no point if we're looking towards an impossible thing where our young people are going to be all calm and serene all the time and never do anything we don't want them to do. I mean, take that off your plate to start with, Najwa, definitely. But also, it's not about you. It's not about them, sorry. It's just about you navigating yourself. Because that's the only thing you can navigate. Because that's where you can be aware. It's not about being aware of other people. It's about your self-awareness. What state of mind are you in when you're talking to your children? Do you notice when your state of mind is going off? And no, like I was describing that conversation with my fiance where we were both getting a bit wound up, and I stopped and held his hand and we walked together for a bit, and we stopped and then we come back, and then we revisited and we still got wound up, and so we stopped again. So there's something there about you knowing when you're in a fit state to have a conversation. So I'll give you an example that might be helpful. My son is on television and he got upset with me because I put something on Instagram that he didn't like. He then proceeded to send me an extremely rude message on Instagram privately. Didn't post it. He then repeatedly tried to phone me and was very angry because I wasn't answering the phone because I knew I wasn't in a fit state. Now, what used to happen with me is I would have picked up the phone and spoken to him and said, "How dare you be so rude?" and we've had a really heated conversation. It would have been horrible. Now, my awareness in that moment was, first of all, was about me. I knew I was jittery, like I felt really, I guess, angry, probably anxious a bit, maybe, just very wound up. And I knew I was not in a place to communicate with him. So I put my phone out of the way. And in that moment, it made sense to just distract myself, just because that's what made sense in that moment. So that I could allow my psychological immune system to move through, for those thoughts and feelings to move through me. I knew that my thinking, that I was in a poor state of mind. It's not him. I'm in a poor state of mind. So I stopped, put my phone to one side, and I just did some admin task on my computer. What I noticed was, after a very short period of time, I started to feel calmer again. And I was not checking myself, but I just know, oh yeah, I feel a lot calmer now. I feel like I could do some other task now, because at the start of it, I couldn't have done anything that involved any creativity or anything, because that was definitely blocked off. So then a little while later on in the day, I sent him a message and said, well, do you want to talk about this now? I took the message down. Whatever I'd posted, I just took it off, because it didn't mean anything to me. I couldn't care less about it. And he didn't want to talk about it, because by that time he'd calmed down as well. So it's always about us. This is why I'm doing this work on relationships this month, because it isn't about other people. It's always about our self-awareness and how we navigate through life. So yeah, lots of love. I'm loving all the love for each other in the chat. That's lovely. Hopefully that's helpful, Najwa. I like the umbrella of peace, Angus. That's lovely. Yeah, Beth, taking care of your side of the street, not engaging codes. It's so hard, but you're learning. Yeah, just not engaging in thoughts that are creating crappy feelings, Beth, because they're not going to help you. The instruction, when the instructions come up and we are feeling terrible, they are the instructions. Bin off and never listen to. Angus, tension is who you think you should be, but relaxation is who we are. That is absolutely true, Angus. Fantastic. Yeah, Sabine, it is difficult working with people who probably, well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because if they're very good at doing the medical bit, it's a bit tricky if they aren't very good at interpersonal. One of the places to look towards, Sabine, is also for you, is probably compassion. That everyone's doing the best they can with the thinking that looks true to them. And I agree, this community is very special, full of compassion and empathy, which is sometimes, well, I see it all the time, because it's me who creates compassion and empathy. That's up to me. And I do come from that place a lot of the time. Self-awareness and space. I like that, Angus, definitely. What a lovely, lovely session this has been. So I am going to scoot off now, because in theory, this new thing that I've started on Zoom has people. Hopefully it's got some people booked onto it, although they hadn't earlier, so hopefully. Well, not yet. So hopefully next week it will have, as I start to get the word out about it. So that'll be a regular session after this session on Zoom, where you can actually have a proper conversation if you want one. And very reasonable to access and very easy to access. So I'm going to gently draw this to a close, unless there's anything anybody else wants to share. That's the most people I've had here, actually, 132. So that's super exciting. So this is a very popular slot, which I will continue to come to. And please do follow me if you're not already following me. Thank you, John. That's lovely. For sharing my experiences and showing my humanness, it's refreshing for speakers here on Insight Times to share that they too deal with life situations. I can't imagine not sharing that. I'm not perfect. God, What we should do actually, and this would be really funny, we should get Bruce on here to tell you about what nightmare I'm to live with. That would be funny, wouldn't it? He could tell you all about my little things that I get wound up about, because I'm human. So be human, all of you. Yeah, just thank you so much. Some lovely comments coming through to say thank you for the session. Just a reminder, this session does come to you by donation, and if you are able to make a donation today, that supports me on Insight Timer in keeping this kind of content free. So let's check out what's coming up for the rest of the week, because I haven't talked about that yet. We are all humans having a human experience. Absolutely, Angus. So true. Never a truer word said. I'm just going to get my profile up so I can let you know what's going on in the world of Claire on my profile. Here we go. So we're just about finishing navigating difficult conversations. So tomorrow morning at 8:05 a.m. Oh, thank you so much, Jen. That's really kind. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Lovely to receive those donations. So tomorrow morning at 8:05, so that's UK time. Oh, thank you, Jen. That's so lovely. Is creating boundaries with grace. So a very different take on boundaries, which seem to have got very sticky, I think. And then not doing one on Thursday, but Friday, embracing unconditional love, which I think really connects well to this one today, doesn't it? And then next week, we've got awakening gratitude in relationships, mindful presence in relationships, the gift of forgiveness, and transforming criticism to empowerment. And then we've got another week, haven't we, of August left to do lives on relationships. In the meantime, please do check out some of my courses. Please do follow me. Please find out more about the 3 principles. Come hell or high water, shall we say. Please find out about the 3 principles. It's a life-changing understanding. It's changed my life beyond belief. I have 4 courses here on Insight. Yes, Sue, there is. And if you check out the link in my bio, it's there. If you what was I going to say? So check out the courses that I've got. I've got 4 courses, and number 5 is on its way. So that will be released in the next week or so, hopefully. And that's a real basic course in 3 principles. So if you're very new to the 3 principles, that will be a good course to start with. Calm, balance, and clarity with ease is a nice one to look at as well. And if you're interested in this stuff around relationships, creating harmonious connections and enhancing relationships with the 3 principles, which is too long, the title's too long. I wish I could go in and change it now. Do you think if I ask them nicely, they'll let me change it? It's just too long. The title is far too long. So thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute joy to be here. Oh, thank you, Danielle. Danielle said it's a lovely course. That's so nice. Thank you. Yeah, please do join me on one of those courses. And if you do want to support me, then you can actually join the course and just have a chat with me there, you know, interact with me. It's lovely to know people are taking the courses, what they're getting out of them, sharing your insights, asking questions and stuff like that. It's really good fun. That's kind of why I like the courses. So hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow morning. It's a cute little doggy. It looks like a husky, maybe. Sue, your dog. You need to know about your dog. Danielle says she wants to know what it is. I am going to stop in a moment, so that might have to wait for next time because I need to go. Right.